So good evening, everyone. If you're in India, good evening. Any other part of the world that you're in, I'm just so glad that you're all here and we're all together today. It's always special to anchor and host Leon VanderPol, who is very dear to me on many, many levels. One is from just the work that he brings into the world, which is how I first met him some years ago. The other is his presence in my life, and that has contributed to my own journey of transformation, both as my own coach, as well as helping me bring his work to India, learning it, getting comfortable with it, and then offering it as my contribution that I've received from him to the rest of the world. He's also, of course, I get him to introduce himself more lucidly than I would. All my introduction is straight from my heart. He'll tell you all the hard facts, but he comes across, or came across to me and still does, as somebody who walks the talk in every which way. In the way that he engages, in the way that he writes, in the way through his book, A Shift in Being. And it has really been my distinct honor and privilege to have crossed paths with him in the corridors of a conference, and then allowed that journey to bloom and blossom to the shape that it has taken today. Leon is based in Taiwan, and he is, leads the Center for Transformational Coaching. Whilst this is a program that is an ICF certified program, like many of you will know, a lot of you are already coaches. I really like to look at this program, at least the first part of it, the foundation part of the program, as a journey that you take for yourself, by yourself, with a group of kindred spirits. A journey of personal mastery, and that's why I enjoy it immensely, both facilitating parts of it as well as experiencing it each time that we go through the book that I've read now five times, and that's the only book in all my reading that I have read so often, and each time it offers some new meaning. But without much ado, I'm going to hand over to Leon, who's going to today spend time talking to us about transformation. Like I shared in the email, it's used interchangeably with change, but I'll ask all the questions up front to Leon, not in a quote style, just stacking them one after the other, but I'll still go ahead and ask them as to really what is transformation, what's the difference between transformation and change, and can an individual truly transform their lives or just change parts of their lives? And what does it take to know whether I'm on a transformational path or whether I'm supporting another person's journey of transformation? And really the larger question, as I see it in the world that we live in today, what is being that transformational presence in this world? So I'm going to hand over to Leon to take us through a conversation and share his inputs. You all know that that we are offering Leon's course in January. A lot of you have already received the details. I'll talk about it towards the end. But just allow yourself to soak in Leon's presence as he shares the journey of transformation, what it means to become a transformational coach, and just enjoy. If any questions come up for you as we go along, please put it in the chat box. We will have time to, in the end, to address a few questions, but I'm going to ask Leon to first open, share a little bit more about himself, and then guide us through. Over to you, Leon.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. Wow, I always love coming into this space with Amrita and, as you may know, an amazing team at Back to Source Coaching. I met Amrita, you said it yourself, at a conference in 2019, 3 years ago. And as much as she speaks so graciously about me, I know that you know who Amrita is, and some of you more than others, but this woman too has just been a light in my life in the way that she has taken to the work, the way that she sees the potentials in the work, the way that she has made her life a reflection of what's possible within it. And of course, for me to see that in not only her, but all those that take to this work in this way, it's always deeply fulfilling. And so today, what I'm really here to do with all of you is to let you know me a little bit and to get a sense of the work, because obviously I can't share all of it with you. I can share with you a glimpse. And in that glimpse, though, a potential. And that's really what I'm here to do today, is just to share that potential with you so that you may too see the spark of potential in yourself through the work, the same spark that Amrita saw that very first time that we met. And she grabbed the book and said, this is wonderful. Can you sign it? And she hadn't even read it yet, but she kind of knew. And from there, she said she's read it so many times and now is coming to really embody this way. So that glimpse of potential, that's what I want to show you more than anything today. I am, if you don't know already, I'm Canadian by birth. I'm Dutch by ancestry. My last name is VanderPol. My parents both emigrated from Holland to Canada in the 50s and 60s. But I do call Taiwan my home now. I've lived here for 23 years. And I'm married to a Taiwanese woman. I have 2 children. I have a daughter who's 15 and a son who is 12. And now there's a whole story behind that. I won't share the story of how I got here with you today. That's a whole nother story. But needless to say, Taiwan has presented me with some wonderful opportunities to really explore my own ground of being and to explore very much my own purpose in this world. And it was I don't know what it was about being here, but something freed me to really pursue a path that perhaps is a little bit less than ordinary for the average Canadian from my generation. And so in 2016, I was already living in Taiwan when I began coaching. I joined a coach training school. I'd heard about it because I was doing organizational training and facilitation at the time, for the American company in Taipei. And one of my colleagues said, hey, have you heard about coaching? And it was really new to Asia at the time, 2005, so we're around there. And I said, no, I hadn't heard of it. So I looked it up online and there was a program that was being offered by an Australian company and I signed up. And, the funniest thing happened was that I fell in love with coaching. I didn't see it coming. I enjoyed training. I enjoyed facilitation. I still do it today. I think at heart, I'm still a teacher, even though I am the founder of the Center for Transformational Coaching. There's an entrepreneurial element to managing an organization like that. At my heart, I'm a teacher. And I fell in love with coaching, even though I was doing these other modalities. So after certification, I became a leadership coach because that was kind of the world I was working in. I was working as a facilitator and a trainer and doing some consulting work in organizational development. So I just added on, as many of you possibly do, coaching as a service to a kind of package. And it was fulfilling because I was doing the work I loved. And in 2010, I then actually began as a coach trainer and coach mentor. And I started working with coaches, both student and professional coaches from all over the world. And all that time that I was doing that, I was still very much working in what we could call a transactional form of coaching. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. But I was also working outside of the professional realm with private clients. And I was noticing that I was going to much deeper places with these people than I was in the organizational coaching I was doing, leadership coaching, and even in the training that I was teaching people. The kinds of things that I was playing with and experimenting with, I wasn't even teaching in these schools. So I started to recognize that there was a depth of potential in coaching that I felt wasn't really being touched in very conventional coaching approaches and conventional coaching methodology. And it was in those years, about 2010 to 2012, that were very, very experiential and experimental for me. I tried on all kinds of things within the coaching space. And one of the big questions that I was exploring and trying to figure out was how to bring together healing and coaching. They're often looked at as separate modalities. But what I was noticing was that when I go to the depths with people that we're going to talk about today, there's a desire to heal certain aspects of the self that no longer reflect kind of an emerging selfhood. So how do we do this? How do we blend these two? So there was a lot of experimentation and play going on in those years. And in 2013, then I launched my very first deep coaching intensive, and 7 people came. I was thrilled. 7 people came. I had no idea what the work really was to be. I just knew that I had something. It was a 10-week course, quite short at the time, and I wanted to put it into the world. Again, experimentation, play. And it was really well received, and the center has simply grown for the last 10 years from there. And now here we are looking at bringing it to India for, I think this is our 4th cohort for India. But what I want to talk about with you is a bit about this difference between the transactional and the transformational that I was experiencing at the time, but nobody was actually teaching me as a coaching student. And this is, of course, the reason I founded the center, because I felt, well, this is something that we can learn. It's not just something that we have to kind of pick up by guesswork. We can really learn it. I didn't even know what these words transactional really and transformational were when I was a student coach. Even as a professional coach, those were not part of my vocabulary of coaching. I didn't describe what I did to people in these terms. It wasn't how I even saw coaching. So let me share a slide with you that may help explain a little bit of this a little more clearly. This is a very simple diagram. I call it the Coaching Continuum. And as you can see, on one side, I put transactional coaching, and on the other side, transformational, and there's this overlap area in between. So the way that I define transactional coaching, and this term, it might be new for some of you as well, is that it's an approach that really is about doing and thinking differently, doing and thinking differently. So transactional coaching is very much results-based, solution-focused, issue-driven coaching. And it's also the realm of things like performance-enhancing coaching, like I'm going to get better at something, whether it's leadership or parenting. So the transactional realm is very much about defining goals. So I've got this goal or this objective that I want to achieve through coaching. And the idea is to, of course, achieve that goal as expediently as possible, right? As expediently as possible. The sooner I can go from A to B, generally speaking, the better it's considered. And that's not necessarily at the expense of quality. It just means that there's an expediency that we would like to have happen around it. Yeah. So goals are defined often then in the transactional realm as something kind of external, such as, okay, I want to, let's say, improve my communication skills, or I want to figure out my next career move, or I want to better manage my time, or I want to lose weight, or I want to build my coaching practice, whatever it may be, these kind of external goals, right? So this is where we are in the vast majority of coaching. It is results-focused, issue-driven, solution-focused kind of coaching. And it tends to be an intellectually driven coaching approach. It can be quite heady. We're all spending our time in our heads to figure out, perceive, and think differently so that we can do differently. So thinking and doing differently really is the way to define transactional coaching. So then we go to the other side of the continuum, and we look at transformational coaching. Now, the way I define it, and I should say that there's no one definition in the world of transformational coaching. So you might see some different definitions out there, though. But my experience has been is that a lot of people define transformational coaching as change. Like they confuse transformation with change. But that is actually not the same kind of process at all, is it? I mean, if you really think about it, we change all the time. The whole act of living is, a constant act of change. And coaching is all about change. But if I ask you how many times in your life have you actually transformed, a metamorphosis of self on an inner or external level, you probably can say, well, maybe once, 2 or 3 times, or maybe once. So transformation is a big deal in a human lifespan. So in transformational coaching, then, I look at it as not doing or thinking differently, though that is an output, but the focus is on your way of being. Your way of being. Who am I being? So transactional coaching conversations really begin, you could say they begin, whenever the conversation moves from about an issue level inquiry, from issue to explore what it means to be different in the world or in that situation, to be different than I am. That's where the transformational conversation begins. Okay, so it moves from, and I'll just put up this next slide here. Hang on a sec. I'll get that up there. There we go. So it moves from not, how do I solve this, or how do I fix this, or how do I get better, or how do I make my goals or dreams come true? That's the transactional realm. It moves to this question: who do I choose to be? This is a huge question. It's about being different in the world. And it's not as straightforward as it seems, because actually the choice is just the beginning. Like, to say I choose to be different, as a simple example, let's say you're working and you find that you're very stressed at work all the time. That's affecting how you communicate. It's affecting how you relate to people. It's just this inner stress and tension. And you say, well, I want to be different. I want to be far more calm and relaxed. I want to be calm at work. I want to be centered and grounded at work all the time, not once in a while. I want to be that. That is what I am. So to get to that point where you are the embodiment, the living embodiment of calm, requires you to look at all of that which stands in the way of you being that. And that's where the transformation comes in. That's really challenging, because there can be a whole host of factors that actually keep us from embodying that new way of being, and then sustaining it, not just at work, but becoming, like I said, the living embodiment of that. So wherever you are, that's who you're being. Yeah. So this question is, I call it the great transformational question: who do you choose to be? And in the exploration of how we embody that and sustain that, that's when we really need to start looking at old patterns of thought, old patterns of attitude, old patterns of behavior, old patterns of emotion that have a grip, often have had a grip for a lifetime. So it requires transformational coaching, a real honesty, a really, really vulnerable honesty with yourself. And it can be at times challenging, if not painful, kind of an assessment of who we are currently, and all that we believe and all that we value, or all that we hold and all that we perceive that stands in the way of us embodying that new way of being, right? So just to give you a bit more insight into that, because this is really key to what it means to be a transformational coach. And to be a great transformational coach is we have to understand, well, what in the human experience is actually transforming? What is it that's transforming? In reality, it's the human mind. It's our mind that is transforming. But in psychology, what we call it is the self-concept. You may have heard this term. It's a psychological term, the self-concept. So the self-concept is in a sense, it's like our inner operating system. It's a complex system of learned or conditioned, if you want to use that word, learned, conditioned beliefs, images, values, perceptions about who we are and our purpose and place in this world. And what it does is that it is what gives rise to why we experience what we experience. So if you think for a minute on just noticing your experience of life in any given moment, even now, the very experience that you're having now is the result, if you will, of your self-concept. all that you believe, all that you perceive, all that you imagine, all that's been taught to you about who you are and the way life is, all influences your in the moment experience and perceptions. And so when we talk about transforming that, when people say, I want to go from being really stressed to just calm in my being, we have to begin to look at all those thoughts, perceptions that stand in the way. And many of those are so baked into us that we don't even know that they're there. They're literally encoded into our operating system, so much so that we operate through them on autopilot, just automatically, without even recognizing that they're there. So in transformational work, we need to be willing to examine this, or I should say your clients too, right? It's to examine these, you could call them distortions, falsities, half-baked truths that are based on your ego-based self-concept. And those are the rings in this image, by the way. I love this image of the onion. These rings, just all around the true self, each one just another layer that stands in the way of knowing who we are. And over a lifetime, we built up a really solid structure. Some people's more solid than others. Some people's more distorted from the reality of who they are than others, based on upbringing, societal influences. But we all have this self-concept that literally influences every moment of our experience. But as I said, it's so hardwired into us that we don't even recognize that it's there most of the time. And so coaching does begin to shine light on this very often. But transformational work, this is what we work with. This is what we work with. So that anytime somebody brings an issue to the coaching table, the issue is only a doorway to what's going on at that level. It's not the issue that we're concerned with. So people can bring anything to the table because that issue will then shine light on these deeper perceptions, these deeper thought patterns, these deeper conditioned and wired in ways of understanding the world that we really want to help illuminate. And then becomes the process of then, well, how do we then peel the onion, if you will? How do we dissolve, release, let go of all of this so that we can come closer and closer to who we truly are, that authentic self at the core of our being? How do we do that? Right? So this is where deep coaching wants to go. And deep coaching is a form of transformational coaching where we really want to help people, you might say, self-actualize, to recognize of who they are at the core of their being, when all of that stuff is stripped away, dissolved away, healed away, released, whatever word we want to use, so that we start to tap into this place of deep authenticity. Yeah. And what I love too about this work too is we talk about awakening. And for me, awakening, it's kind of like, and Nidhi, who's on the call today, shared a lovely image with me of awakening. She said, visualize being in a dark cave your whole life, and all you know is this dark cave. And we could say this is our self-concept, right? It's just the world that we know. It's the world that we've been taught. It's all that we know. And she said, suddenly there's this light that shines in. It goes through, it finds a crack and it shines in. You begin to see the cave. You begin to see it. And you start to realize that maybe there's not only more to this cave than I know, but there's a world beyond this cave that I could explore and learn and find my way to. So if you think about that, then this is what we're really doing in awakening. Is this kind of a crack opens in our mind and a light begins to shine in. And there is a sense that there is more to who I am and more to this world than perhaps I've ever known. And yet I don't really know what that means. Okay, so this is the beauty of awakening. So then awakening is kind of like the you say the beginning or the onset of a journey of transformation, that will take us deeper and deeper into ourselves. Yeah, and this is what I love about the work, is because what we're doing is we're learning to coach this journey for people as deep coaches, and it's based on recognition of being. Who am I being? And then even deeper, who am I at the core? that essential quality of self. Who am I? And how do I tap into that? How do I bring it to life? How do I make that crack of light grow so I can step into the world beyond the cave, which is the only world I've ever known? And so one of the things that Amrita was asking is, how do we know when people are on this journey? Or how do we even know that we're ready for this journey? Maybe as coaches, maybe as just as ourselves. And so I was going to share with you a few signals, what I call signals of transformation, that say for people who exhibit these signals, there is that crack. There's that crack that's open in their mind, and there is a light shining in, but not as all known yet. It's a sense that there's more to this than I've ever understood. And that actually can cause people some trepidation. Imagine if you've lived in that dark cave your whole life and it's all you really know, and suddenly there's a light shining in. That's going to cause you to be a little bit like, oh my, what's going on here? What does this mean? What's beyond that? Fear will come in, confusion will come in, uncertainty will come in. So we get this. So one of the first signals that we will see is this signal here. It's a sense of uncertainty. A sense of uncertainty and this confusion and this doubt around what's actually happening within themselves and within their lives. And this is one of the most powerful signals to recognize that someone is really ready for transformational coaching and transformational work. And it seems like a funny one, isn't it? Like, it's like, wait a minute, this awakening is happening. Isn't it when awakening happens, isn't it like rose petals get thrown out and we just la 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 into this enlightened state? Isn't that what happens with awakening? It's just all, no, actually, this recognition that there is more to me than who I am at the core of my being is actually for people a bit frightening, because big questions arise. Questions like, well, who am I? Who really am I? I know what I've been taught to value. I know what my parents instilled in me. I know what my culture instilled in me. I know what my workplace instills in me, all telling me I need to be this in order to be that, or to have this. And I strive and I strive and I'm ambitious and I try to make it. But wait a minute, who am I? And what is my purpose at a core level? What is my purpose? What am I here for in this world? So these big questions come up, and yet there are no easy answers. If you're like me and you've ever been on this journey of finding your purpose, it certainly, at least for me, wasn't written on a blackboard in the sky that said, Leon, here's your purpose. Here it is. All you have to do is find that blackboard and off you go. It was never like that. It was far more organic and far more difficult than I had ever anticipated it being, to find my way into this place where I could recognize purpose. But the questions are arising. And at the same time, people are beginning to question everything that they've been taught by family, by culture, by religion, even by their spiritual upbringing. I've had many people from the India group say, my guru has been teaching me this. I am not so sure I'm just going to buy into it anymore. There is a huge amount of questioning coming up. And it doesn't mean that everything is rejected. It means everything is now open to be questioned. And there's this inner call that can't be ignored. So this is a really big signal, the confusion. So if you experience it, the sense of seeking something greater than yourself, within yourself, outside yourself, purpose, being, understanding, this is a signal of people who are really ready for deep transformational work. Okay? The second signal is, I call it the presence of the pain body. The pain body. In psychology, another term, shadow side. Yeah, those are slightly different. The pain body being a little bit more of what we could call the energetic, emotional pain that we carry from our past experiences, perhaps hurt, trauma, disappointments. The shadow side tends to refer more to some of those qualities of our humanity, such as greed or callousness, and pride, those kinds of things that we all carry with us. But also shadow side can refer to unattended sorrow as well. which, by the way, wonderful book, Stephen Levine, Unintended Sorrow, highly recommended. But what he says is that grief work is not only for loss of loved ones. Grief work is something we can do anytime that we have experienced a deep hurt. It could be a deep disappointment, a deep shame, a deep anger, anything like that. We can do grief work around, because he says what happens is if we don't do grief work, that stuff accumulates and we start to carry it around kind of like this big bag of rocks. So that's also called the shadow side. It's this accumulation of hurt and pain that we carry. It could be negative thoughts, negative emotions, negative energy, more the pain body there. Some of this stuff, if it goes back, can be alive in every cell of your body. But people who are on this journey, and this is what's interesting, is they're not saying, I think I need therapy. In fact, I often hear people say, I don't want to go to therapy for this. There's nothing wrong with me. And they're actually right, because the arising of this sense that there is stuff in me that wants to be attended to, this pain body, is actually a very, very functional signal of someone who's ready to do deep transformational work. But our conventional thinking is, well, this is not good. This is uncomfortable. There must be something wrong with me. So it can be a place of tension where people begin to doubt themselves, even doubt what they're experiencing, maybe even judge what they're experiencing negatively, as in, this is not good. But it's a powerful signal that someone is beginning to transform and is really ready for this deep transformational work. Yeah. And those who are really ready will start to recognize, yeah, I need to heal. And this is not healing as in there's something wrong with me that I need to fix it. It's healing as in movement into wholeness and completion. I love that image, movement into wholeness and completion. It's again recognizing the essence of self at the core that lies beyond all that falsity and distortion that we have carried about who we are and what we're capable of and what our value is. It's that's what it is to be whole and complete, and to recognize that. So coaches don't have to be healers, though we work with this idea in transformational work that we are on a healing journey, that perhaps even transformation is a healing journey of movement into wholeness and completion. It's a way of saying it's a recognition of who I am at the core of my being, which has always been whole and complete. But are we really there, living in that? Or is it just something we're paying lip service to? Something that's a nice idea, or we're living it? Yeah. So as you see, we begin in this deep coaching work that we're doing, we're beginning to create conditions. And this is really important to understand. We create conditions where people can attend to this. And it's not problem solving. So this is where transactional coaching bumps up against transformational work, is that the transactional approach is, this is a problem to be fixed, a problem to be solved because it's uncomfortable and it's affecting your life in a negative way. But what happens when that stuff is perfectly functional and absolutely necessary? Then how do you coach it? So it's kind of a new paradigm of coaching when you start to recognize that we have to work at a being level, an energetic level, a soul level, and a deep mind level. And that just problem solving our way through this is not going to be what people need who are truly on the path. And so this comes to the third signal I'll share with you, and that is that people who are ready for this work feel a strong desire to live very authentically. You hear that word a lot these days. I hear a lot of authentic leadership, but in my view, most people don't really know what that even means. Like transformation, it's just tossed around easily. Like authenticity means that if I speak my mind, therefore I'm being authentic. Except the fact is that if you have a massive shell of ego around you and you speak your mind, are you really being authentic? Well, you're speaking your mind, that's true, but that's not for me what authenticity is. It's about recognizing the essence of who you are and expressing that into the world. That's authenticity for me. Yeah. And people who are beginning to recognize that there's more to who they are in life are feeling the call to be authentic. They are ready to drop the masks they wear. So if you're one of these, and or you coach people, you put on your professional mask when you go into work. This is who I am at work, and I take that off when I go home. I'm a different person with my friends than I am with my colleagues. So people are ready to take off these masks. They're ready to drop the personas. their personas, the dynamic leader persona. I'm ready to drop that. I don't want to live through personas anymore that I put on just to impress or to succeed. I'm ready to drop that. I want to live authentically. So this is the call that's within people who are ready for this work. It's something's becoming in them. There's a becoming process, and it is of their highest aspirations. It's a call to live fully and completely, and it's a call to be of real service to humanity. The people that take deep coaching are called to be of true service to humanity. They're not just wanting to be better coaches. We do that. That's a transactional goal. I want to be a better coach, right? To live in service, profound service to humanity is something utterly different. And it comes in when we begin to naturally live authentically and purposefully from that place that is really shorn of all that which is false within us. So these are some signals just to be aware of. You're thinking, okay, are my clients ready for this? Do the people I work with ready for this? Am I ready for this? And even if your clients are not 100% ready for this, what this work does is it changes you as a coach. This is the amazing thing. And I'll show you why I say that. Because to be a great deep coach, a great transformational coach, you have to understand that this journey first needs to be for you. That's why Amrita said at the beginning, she said the first part of the class is about you. Because so much of this work, and this is where it comes in, the fourth insight there. Just look down on the slide. The fourth insight there is that your transformation is what enables transformation. I probably should have put that at the top. Because that is the greatest truth that I can share with you today. That the great transformational coaches are not paying lip service to the work. They haven't said, well, I read about deep coaching in this book, and I'm just applying the principles into my coaching sessions, but I am not the living embodiment of them. I have no interest in that. The great transformational coaches are the ones that have committed fully to their own transformation. Because when you do that, everything in you changes. And then it doesn't mean that your client needs to show up perfectly ready for this work, but you show up differently with your clients. And what happens is some of these other things arise. The third one, your being is your primary doing. And some of you who are coaches are going to know there's probably an element of you, perhaps you can call it the persona or the mask, that wants to create value for your clients. This session needs to create value. I need to prove my worth each and every session. I have to show that I'm worth it to my client, to the sponsor. And that's in the back of your mind as a reality every session you step in. Now, when you carry that thought, then what happens to you as a coach? It may drive you to need certain outcomes for that breakthrough, for that aha moment, right? Then you say, great, there was an aha moment. I was worth it. I'm worth it. my job is secure for another week, kind of thing. But what happens when all of that goes away? When simply your work becomes about who you're being in that space with the other? Because transformation, this is the part of the top here, is that transformation is self-volitional. Many people don't recognize this. Transformation is self-volitional. What happens is we get in our own way. Awakening is a process of evolutionary growth. It has its own momentum built into it. But our fears, our doubts, our concerns, our worries are, what will people think of me if I go down this path? What will become of me if I go down this path? Will I be financially safe if I go down this path? Those things get in the way, and people say, well, it's better just to kind of keep one foot in the world that I'm in, this transactional world, and make sure the bills get paid and I do what I need to do. And I'll dabble in the transformational world. I'll read a good book. I'll go to the temple occasionally, to church, and I'll go to a nice workshop. I'll learn a bit about myself, but I will not fully commit. So we get in our own way. But our work is to create spaces in which this self-volitional process can do its work in the awakening mind without really much more than the presence of our being to support that. And then it's about what your client does. not what your client does, but what the client allows. And they allow so much more when they are in the presence of radiant being, when there's not a need to get somewhere, right? To have a certain outcome, to achieve a certain thing. That's the transactional world, and there's nothing wrong with it. It has its place. It absolutely has its place. That's why it's on the continuum, because coaches can move up and down depending on where clients are at, right? But what happens when so much of that falls away is the self-volitional process of self-revelation can do its own thing in the awakening mind. So the quality of your presence becomes paramount. And most people, let's be honest, folks, how much time each day are you spending focusing on the quality of your presence? It's not something most folk really spend a lot of time with. But this work invites us into being, into choices in being. Who do I choose to be? And then it invites us into a journey of becoming that, the living embodiments of that which we choose. And then beyond that, even further than the choice, is the simple recognition of who I am at the core of my being. And as we enter into this for ourselves, we become the enablers of that for someone else, right? That's the thing. We enable our clients' transformation because of what we've done for ourselves, not because necessarily what we're doing for them. Huh? That's a funny one, isn't it? Because I was taught as coaches, it's everything that I can do for my clients. I'm their thinking partner. Yeah. And now I'm saying, no, it's actually what you're doing for yourself that's going to be more magical for your clients than anything you can possibly think of to do for your clients. Like, ah, okay. So this is a lot. I'm just going to let you sort of sit with that for a minute, all that I've shared. And just to recognize that you become the great enabler. You enable transformation once you have committed to your own path. And so the course is inviting all those to join who are ready for this work in themselves, and then to bring it to the world in different ways. And again, it doesn't mean your clients are ready for it, but you are ready to be different with your clients. Because when you're different with your clients, that's when the magic can really, really happen. It's like you invite them to go deeper in themselves, and they don't even know you're doing it, simply because you radiate a depth of presence that is you. That is you. So I'll pause there, Amrita. There may be a lot of questions. There may be none. You may want to, I don't know, speak a bit more about the course. You let me know where we can go from here.
Sure. Thanks so much, Leon. And I just want to, just share a little perspective, and which will also touch upon how this work has impacted my own life and what drives me. So for me, that signal that I said yes to was that strong desire to live authentically into what I discovered was my life purpose. And because I did discover what my life purpose is, and I now wanted to live into it. And I didn't want to live into it just in a coaching session. I didn't want to live into it in just a coach training program. I wanted to live into it in, like he says, in every cell of my being, in every role that I played, when my eyes were open, when my eyes were shut. And that's what took me on this path to engage with Leon's work and understand what he calls that shift in being. So the question of who do I choose to be, I know for many, many coaches here, is a question that is our all-time favorite question. And we've probably asked it several times to ourselves and to clients. But it's different from who do I choose to be in a situation, who do I choose to be whilst I'm pursuing this goal, who do I choose to be as I'm playing this role. But that shift in being is that invitation. That's also the name of Leon's book, which is the companion to this course, which each one of you who sign up will receive. But that's the invitation to embody a different, and there's no going back then from that. Okay, now I've shifted, and now I can go back and play this role that is demanding from me in this situation. And that to me is that space of authenticity, that space of commitment to my own journey of transformation. So just a little bit about the course before I open it up to questions. And I'll keep it brief because all of you would have received an email or will receive an email later from me about it. But it is an immersive and intensive space that we invite you into. It's made up of two parts of the foundation and mastery. And I invite everyone to take that leap of faith all the way from foundation to mastery. Because not just from an ICF certification and all the other transactional realm of it, piece of it, but because that is really embodying that and then being that presence, holding that space for other people. And that's really how I see foundation and mastery. It's a journey of personal mastery. First, in foundation, you experience the work, and then how do I go about bringing this work to other people by holding space for them through my coaching conversations is the mastery piece of it. So it starts from the 9th of January. All of these details, you will receive. And Leon and I facilitate this program. Foundation with Leon's book and lots of Leon's videos. I take 8 of the 12 classes. And in mastery, Leon takes 5 of the 9 classes. And that's how we've split our presence. But you will experience both our presence irrespective of whether we are physically there or not through the entire duration from the 9th of January all the way to the 24th. Every Monday. And the other thing, a lot of us as we're keeping the pandemic behind us and saying, will this ever be a in-person program? I know many people ask me that question, and I really feel that the beauty of the work, the depth of this work requires that investment, that immersion. And so when you receive everything that we go through on Monday, it gives you that space to apply it and integrate it before we meet back on Monday. So I think the format, the way that it has been designed as a deep coaching intensive, virtual serves it most beautifully. And you join from people across the world. And just like in coaching sessions, all the work happens between 2 coaching sessions. The journey happens between those 2 Mondays. So I'll stop there. I know that there are a few questions, some in the chat, some with raised hands. So let me just open that out to any questions that you may have. And yeah, Vineet, let's see. You typed a lot, but I'm going to ask you to share your question and succinctly.
Yeah, verbally would be excellent. Just
sure.
Verbally,
thank you. Yeah, so I mean, I did type in 2 questions. I think the first one is probably more fundamental to me because, for example, as a follower of Ramana Maharishi, whose primary work is around the whole concept of who am I or who is this I, I'm very curious to understand that the answer to who am I is actually the enlightened I am that. And I don't know, I would be very curious about Leon's personal journey. How, what kind of depth has he had in this answering of who am I and I am that? And how does he bring that into this work? Because there are different ways of dealing with it. So this is not mind, but this is probably soul. So I'm just a little curious about that connection.
It's really difficult to put that into words, as you know, to share, because it's not something that is of that mind, if you will. It's just this, I can only use the word sense, and thus experience of something altogether very pure. So for myself, it was a long journey coming into those moments where that purity of selfhood was experienced. And it took me a long time to recognize too why that was. I would also read books that would say something like, well, who am I? I am that. And intellectually I went, yeah, that's right, I'm that. But my experience of I am that was always evolving. And it probably will continue to evolve evolve. It will come to a new place of experience at some point, and then perhaps even further. So it's not that I can share where I am, because I don't know where I am. I'm just somewhere in this journey of revelation of something so utterly pure and magnificent that I've only probably glimpsed a part of. But it's been enough for me to inform the way that I want to then live into life. And it's not to say that I go chasing it, as some seekers do. They go chasing that fleeting moment of expansive consciousness as though they can grab it if they do the right things. I've never lived that way, and that infuses the work. This is not a striving to attain anything. It is simply allowing ourselves to fully experience this moment, and in that sensing the emerging potentials within any moment, both within ourselves and externally, which takes us into another kind of experience in relationship with each other in life, or within relationship to myself. And that's really all the work does then. It's more about how do we lean more into this moment and this experience, whether you call it painful or joyful, rather than how do we seek to attain a greater expanded consciousness. And paradoxically, perhaps, I find that that leaning in is what brings about the greater expanded consciousness, but it yet isn't the thing that we are striving to attain. I hope that helps, because it's very difficult to put words to this.
This is a very breakthrough point that you just made, leaning into my own pain. Yeah.
And or joy. Because in this journey that people are on of becoming more authentic and real, there are great joys to be experienced, though fleeting for some at the beginning, because joy is just not a thing they know. But even that, what is joy? What is it to be joyful? I had an interesting podcast with a guy the other day who started his podcast by saying, this is my podcast, and it's all about me helping leaders live more purposefully and joyfully. And he didn't smile at all through the whole podcast. And I said at the end, and this is off camera, I said, you know what I needed? I need to see you smile. I need to see you being joy, because you're talking about joy. He goes, yeah, actually, just joy thing is kind of new for me. I'm really more about purpose right now. I'm very purposeful and very intentional in my work. And I cracked up laughing. I said, well, that would explain that. But the point is, he said, this joy thing is new for me. And that's it. It is for most humanity something that we glimpse once in a while, or we have a good laugh with our friends, but joy, the embodiment of it, to be that which is joy, is something quite far away. Yeah. So how do we get there? We got to lean into that, which is both joy when we experience it, but also that which is standing in the way of joy being our reality. Yeah.
I'm just going to chime into what Leon shared, and even though Vineet, you didn't ask me that question directly, but I think that for me, the study of the Indian scriptures and the understanding that I am that, and you are that too, is, I have 100% belief, faith, and trust in those two statements completely. And what I have found is that through Leon's work and through the modality of coaching, it gives a vocabulary for that experience to unfold, both for me as well as the client in that coaching space. And that's why I'm so passionate about this work, and I find this work so sacred both. The other piece is that how that happens is because, as I have both read and understood, is that what I am offering as that coach is my presence. And so the whole thing is presence-based. But at the same time, in offering my presence, I know that it is led by a higher energy that neither can I describe, nor can I articulate, but I know is felt and experienced through my presence. And that's what I find as the power as well as the beauty, and at the same time, the humility of this work.
Beautiful, beautifully said. Thank you so much.
Amrita, what you were saying actually kind of flashed in my mind's eye of a phrase that we use very commonly, and I'm going to translate it as well. In Sanskrit, that we say Tat Tvam Asi. So that I am is manifested in the object in front of me, and what's in that object is manifested back at me.
Yeah, exactly. You had another question, Vineet. Do you want to take a shot at that, or anyone else?
I'll just let others go. I don't want to hog the space, please. So if there is time, I'll ask that.
Sure.
So I have a question. Can I go?
Of course, Nabina. And then we'll come to you, Narayan.
So basically, listening to both you and Leon, I'm new to the coaching world. In fact, I'm not a coach at all. I'm just not anything. But to me, this sounds very, very, very much like a spiritual journey that I have been myself for many, many years. But I don't really get, and a spiritual journey, and to come to this awakening takes years and years and years, maybe for some just in a flash, but I would imagine for the majority takes many, many, many years, sometimes lives, many lives. And when you are in this journey yourself and you haven't yet found it, how does one expect to actually share this with others when you haven't really found I am that? When you haven't had that experience, I am that. Are you just intellectually talking about it? That's easy to do. And then also the other thing is, then what is the difference between being on your spiritual journey yourself and coaching and coaching? To me, what you and Leon are saying is basically the same. So there is no difference between your spiritual journey and coaching. The only difference I see is that coaching brings you money, and your spiritual journey doesn't.
And some coaches will complain that it doesn't bring them any money. But they love doing it. Yeah. So perhaps, Navina, I'll answer the first question. Maybe Amrita, you can answer the second question, because it's a really good question people ask all the time. And the question isn't necessarily, if I have never experienced I am that, how can I be this coach? The question is sometimes phrased as, well, I'm not very far along yet in my own journey. I think I'm still on this path. I haven't figured it all out yet. There's still confusion in myself as to who I am and what is it that I'm about in this world at that higher level. How can I really be of any help to anyone else? Who am I to be a coach or a support to anyone else when my life is still kind of messed up or not all together? Different ways of phrasing it, but it's kind of like that, yeah? And that's one of the great doubts that besets people who are on the path, but are also called to be of service with others in this work. And there's a couple things that I've noticed. One thing I've noticed is that the people that are attracted to us, they're attracted to sit with us, be it in a formal coaching context or simply on a park bench. I can't explain how they come to be there, but they are very often people who see something in us that they aspire to in themselves. And they may not even be able to put their finger on it. And I think that's just the most extraordinary truth, is that you will always attract to you the people who are ready for whatever it is that you have, that you're ready to impart, or teach, or share with that person. Very rarely, if ever, would you attract to someone, to yourself, in that way, who has moved far beyond where you are I don't mean you never bump into these people and have conversations with them, but in that sense of really being capable of offering something of value, meaningful enabling of their journey in some way. There's something magical in this. What they say, when the student is ready, the teacher arrives, and that is true for all of humanity. It doesn't mean everyone's this great teacher. It means that any human being, no matter where they are on their path, and especially if you're on this path of awakening and transformation, a spiritual journey, a personal growth journey, there will be people in the world who see something in you that they aspire to, that they say, yeah, I want some of what you've got. Can I sit with you and learn from you? Can I talk with you? Can we converse about this? Okay. So this is a way of saying you have value and worth exactly where you are without needing to be any different than you are. And at the same time, we're going to instill through this work, this teaching, a confidence and a capacity to work with people no matter where you are, because this work that Amrita called holding space is something that can be learned, so that no matter who comes to you in what context, you have got a capacity to be there for them in an expansive way that welcomes them and invites them to explore their inner world with you in some way. And it doesn't mean you're anywhere in particular on this wonderful journey, because as you said, it can take a lifetime for some, less for others, to go through the very kind of turbulent transformational period, as when the caterpillar metamorphosizes into the butterfly. There's that period inside the cocoon of death and renewal, right? And we as humans have something akin to that as well in our journey, till we kind of emerge, not as perfected beings, but as something perhaps more confident, capable. But everyone has the capacity, everyone. That's my answer to your question, Nabina. I hope that helped. I'll let Amrita answer your second question.
The second question is the money question, right? Is that the question? Yeah.
No, she said the only difference that she sees between coaching and personal spiritual growth is that coaching can pay. Maybe in between deep coaching and, but anyway, that's it. And,
Yeah.
But she's saying that she's seeing them as quite similar, or perhaps the same.
So Nabina, in response to that, I think that the way that I see it is that, like in one of the insights that Leon shared, is that it's your transformation that enables transformation, and that your transformational journey is how I see the spiritual journey, or that inward journey that you commit to as a deep transformational coach. And in committing to that journey, there is an outward expression that is fostered through the modality of coaching. And that outer expression through the modality of coaching is what allows you to build an abundant practice. And abundant, I'd say, not just from a space of making money, but abundant in so many ways. Just abundant in the way that, the kind of people, like Leon was sharing, that you attract to your life. And to every single person, in every single email that I have ever written to them, I have said that this is a spiritual-based coaching program. I have always shared that that's one of the prime reasons that I love doing this work, because it is that. So it's an explicit invitation to take an inward journey with a modality that supports an outward expression. And in that outward expression, there's abundance of wealth beyond just the currency of money. So I hope that answers that part of the question. Yeah, Narayan.
So this is in response to the model, the self-concept model, where the true self is at the very core, and then there's all the layers that we build around them. And I heard you say that our beliefs and values and attitudes are all these things around the true self. So to me, this question about finding our life purpose, and the question that comes to me is, how is purpose special? How is purpose any different at that level from beliefs and values, etc.? To me, it's at the same level
piece
as
to find out. That's the piece that people want to find out. So this is not a prescriptive in that I say this is why it's special. That what seems to be built into this thing we're calling a transformational journey is that people get a deep sense, yearning to live purposefully. And some will even say, I want to find my life purpose. So it's a signal that there is something shifting within them that says perhaps the way that I've been taught to think about myself, my talents, my gifts, I've been taught to think about what's important in terms of career or development. All of that perhaps is not actually true for me or real for me or altogether valid for me. Perhaps there is something that is really who I am, and it feels like there's something that I need to be doing in this world that is really of my core self. So these are the questions people are asking. So it's not to say, what is that purpose? Like, where is it coming from? Is it from your beliefs or values? Is it something that's been conditioned, or is it something that's true to you? That's actually the journey that people go on to discern that. The coach's role is to simply support that journey, not to say, well, it needs to look like this, or this is not what it is, it should be that. It's not that kind of defining process. It's just recognizing that people have that yearning. And then when they have that yearning, what is it that they want to do with it? How do they want to explore it? How does that affect their understanding of themselves? What might be standing in the way of them pursuing greater clarity or understanding of this sense of purpose and in the world? That's it. So it's not to say that purpose is special, and it's not to say that, again, it's not evolving, because at first purpose might be fundamentally of your self-concept. I was taught from a young age that I needed to be a doctor, a lawyer, a mathematician, an engineer. So therefore my purpose is to build great technology but it's all coming from that conditioned selfhood. Over time that may evolve. And then people say something, well, actually my purpose in this world is to design awakening programs for women who are going through hardship in their mid-40s. Oh, okay, that sounds like an evolution of it, but is that really true purpose? And then you go along a little further, you get people to say the purpose that I have in this world is simple. It's to love. Oh, well, that's very different than being an engineer or designing programs for people in crisis in their mid-40s. You see, this is evolutionary kind of thing that happens just as we give people the space to explore that, not to define where it's coming from or what it means, because that's not really as relevant as what's meaningful for you within this and what is it that wants to be given voice and expression in this. Does that make sense?
Yep.
And so as a coach, I'm very cognizant of the fact that this work is not prescriptive work. One of the things that really challenges a lot of folks, especially if they've had a spiritual background, if they've done a lot of study and reading on spirituality, if they've studied under certain people, for example, or they're proponents of a certain religious path or a church or whatever it is that can get a bit well, this is my understanding of it. And let me just share that with you, because for me, this is what works. And this is perhaps a way you should be thinking about it too, because this is really true. And that tends to get in the way, actually, oddly enough, isn't it? When people are in that space of wanting to explore their own reality and truth, if we're imposing these ideas, it's just another source of imposition. It might be different than your parents' voice, but it's just another voice that says, this is how you ought to think about it. And I don't see the coach's role being valuable in that way. As a deep coach, it's more, how do we create spaces in which people can articulate whatever is true and meaningful for them, just pure as that. And then we start to notice that when they're given that space, great wisdom comes out. It doesn't mean it's the highest wisdom they'll ever get to. And we can get, well, there's a greater wisdom than that. I know it. I'm going to share it with you now. Rather, what would it take to allow that person to evolve to that on their own time frame, kind of thing. That's what I love about this work. It's really prescriptive free, definition free. It's spirit based, but it doesn't say this is the way we need to think about spirit. None of that.
Now,
Thank you.
one quick question. I'm sorry.
Nalina, is your question related to this? Then we'll take that in, or we'll just, and Hari has his hand raised patiently for a long time. So we'll take Hari's question and come back to you.
Okay, that's fine, madam.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, Hari.
Super, Leon. Thanks, Amrita. So, Leon, my question comes from the same slide that Narayan was sharing, and the example of an onion, and you keep on peeling the onions, and finally you get to a true self. But what my thoughts are, and the way I'm discovering life in the last couple of years, is you keep on peeling the onions, and somewhere it doesn't lead to anywhere. I really don't know whether I can really come to a true self or not, because I'm still in a very discovery of my own life at this point of time.
Right.
And I really don't know, the pictorially, when you say the true self, which is at the center with a nice heart, I really don't know what the true self is all about.
Yeah.
Now, my question is, have you seen in your coaching for many, many people around you, have you seen somebody arriving at that true self? Yes, this is what I am, and putting a full stop there. Because according to me, a couple of times also you use the word as becoming an enabler.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think rather than becoming, according to me, I mean, again, well, Amrita used a very nice word. You can put language to what your thoughts are. So when you say becoming, according to me, there's a full stop there. I've arrived. So I would rather tell myself as be an enabler rather than becoming an enabler. So my question, Leon, is two-faced. One thing is, can somebody arrive at the true self at any point of time in their lifetime? Or is it an ever discoverable journey of mine? Can I become my true self? That's my question in a nutshell.
Yeah, good. And what I love about this is that, first of all, it makes no difference. It's a beautiful and totally irrelevant question, but I will share my knowledge from my own experience, and that is right now, I don't know. Because what I have discovered is that every time it feels like a moment of being there, something even greater reveals itself and then leads me to, and there's more. Right? So I then start to realize, don't forget that picture is just a very loose metaphor. It's a very simple, easy to grasp metaphor of an onion around. We're kind of carrying these crusty shells of stuff that we've picked up along the way that we have often carried for so long that we think it's actually who we are. And that there is this beautiful journey that we go under to start to peel that away. That's all the metaphor is meant to be. And we get closer to this purity of self. Now, the depth of that, the magnificence, the sheer scale of it, I don't even think humans possibly can even comprehend. I don't think that if I saw you in the true magnificence of yourself, I don't know if I could even physically as a human being take in that amount of light without kind of exploding kind of thing. Like, I don't know, but I have sat with people in this field, and this is where the coaching work can go, to these periods of incredible silence, just, and the expansion of consciousness of the two of us just sitting in there. There is no word, there is no sound, there is only that. And then I say, well, is that as far as it goes? I don't know. I know that was phenomenal. I'll take more of that. Thank you very much. And if there's more, I'm here for that too. But I don't know.
Absolutely. Absolutely, man. I think the last three words, I don't know, that summarizes it all. And that gives an amazing amount of space to still discover ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah.
Great.
To allow this magnificent universe to reveal more and more of our nature in the time that it has to do that. We are in a rush. I got like 70 years to figure this out. Nature, universe is going, you got 40,000 million lifetimes. I don't know. We'll get there. We'll show it to you one day. So I just have to trust that it will come as my readiness and capacity to receive it grows.
Great. Thanks, Leon.
I'm also going to share, another perspective in terms of saying that it's that journey, that shift in being that I spoke about earlier. Leon's book, Shift in Being. Great tagline to that would be the journey of becoming, but there's no full stop at the end of that becoming.
Yeah.
It's just like that continuum that Leon showed in one of his slides. It's that becoming is also on that continuum, but in the coaching, in the realm of coaching, in the presence of that silence, or one of the many 9 practices that is taught through the program, and embodying that, you have an experience sometimes of that true self in that session. And then it's so that, and that's also what I find as one of the hallmarks or the difference in a deep coaching session, is that the client and you yourself, and client and coach, become one almost in that space. And in that space, there is an experience of a shifted state of being. Whether that shifted state of being is something that carries on beyond the session or not, is that journey of becoming. But definitely experiencing that sometimes, and not being attached to having that experience in every session. If it happens, it does. But in that presence, based, spirit-led space, there is often an experience.
And just to add to that, because this is what's key to the transformational coaching work in general, is that it becomes more experiential than it does intellectual. Okay. And what I mean is, many coaching sessions, we talk something through, we start to recognize that there's certain actions I want to take, and we plan to do that, and move forward with that. And if there's something to be experienced, sometimes they talk about how they're going to do that after the session. But the deep coaching work, transformational work, when we talk about helping people embody new ways of being, and this doesn't mean that they're on a spiritual path, not everyone is. If I'm just a leader who says I want to embody greater calm or confidence at work, the session space becomes around the embodiment of confidence. Like, what is it? Like, I will say to my clients, take me into confidence. And they will try to verbalize it. Well, the unconfidence is when and I'm like, no, don't say it. Take me into confidence. I want to feel confidence emanating from you. And they get stumped because all they know is how to talk about confidence. Describe it, or describe not having confidence, but to be. So this becomes the interesting shift, that the coaching session becomes an experiential time to be that which we are desiring to be, whether it's spiritual or not. And then noticing that when I leave the session, there's going to be a period where I feel I'm sustaining that, and suddenly it's gone. Okay, that comes back to the next session. Then what are we looking at? We're looking at what got in the way of your inability to sustain confidence forever. Oh, well, I had a thought. What was that? Well, the thought was that I'm not as good as, so the moment you had the thought, I am less than or not as good as, your bubble of confidence popped. Great. Let's look at that. So now we start to open up these crusty layers of belief about self, that I'm not worthy, I'm not good enough, I'm not capable, I'm not lovable, I'm not whatever. And now we're getting to really deep stuff. Oh, I've realized I've carried since I was 8 years old the thought that I was not good enough, because every time I brought something home from school, my parents said to me, this isn't good enough. You got to do better. And they would berate me. My parents would only give me love when my grades were good enough. I've carried I'm not good enough for a lifetime. So I can't carry it very far, this confidence thing. That thought comes up quite quickly. This is the work of transformational coaching. And that's just to embody confidence. It's not even someone who's saying I'm on this great spiritual journey of becoming. It's just, I want to be confident. Be, right? So this is an application in all areas of life where people are ready to shift their way of being in them.
We're nearing the top of the hour, but I'll take Alna's question first and then come to you, Namita, to close with your question, okay?
Willing to pass it now, Amrita, because my questions become deeper and deeper for the workshop.
Good. Great. Yeah, Namita.
So So I'm happy to keep it for the workshop as well, but I wanted to deeply thank both you and Amrita and Leon for actually articulating so much of what is there in our heads, right? I mean, I think just the way you articulated it has struck such a deep chord with me. So thank you so much for that. I think one of the things that I struggle with, and I've just barely started the coaching journey, but I think for me, the pull to this program was really about understanding the self, understanding my purpose, and how can it translate to what I do, right? So I think my starting point for this, for seeking this course, was that. So I think one of the things that I sort of have struggled with in my journey so far is, one is the realization, through your work. So, the example that Leon took, and my question emerged from that, Leon, when you are not able to sustain a certain state of being that you are aiming to, or you've realized that you want to, what is it that stops you from getting there? So the realization of what stops you from getting there is one stage, right? And it's a significant stage. But then how do you translate that into change? Or I'll use the word change here and not transformation, because I'm really talking about the change of thinking, and that leading to transforming yourself, right? So how do you sort of traverse that journey? Is that something that we'll learn about in this program as well? Or is it again something that is, I know it's not prescriptive, but is that a journey that sort of your thinking covers?
I'm sorry, could you just get that question? I just didn't miss the question itself.
So the
Sorry.
question is the realization of the state of being, right? Your purpose, who I am, the realization of where you need to get to is the first stage. The second is to bridge the gap, take the journey to sort of make that into a sustained effort and transformation within yourself. How do you make that journey? Is that, because I have struggled with that.
Okay, yeah, that's the question. How do you make that journey? Do we cover that? And you asked if that's prescriptive.
I understand that this program is not prescriptive, but somewhere will there be something guiding us towards this answer, is what I'm trying to understand.
Absolutely. And what you're going to discover, I think, if I can grasp the question right, is that when we create spaces in which a person is able to, with us in a held space, embody these ways of being, the way forward simply reveals itself. And people begin to see opportunity and potential emerging from this new way of being, because what happens is it's a paradigm shift. And as the paradigm shifts, a new reality simply is part of that new paradigm. They simply perceive in that way. And they know what they need to do. So I don't need to ever prescribe anything. People know what they need to do. The only question is, do they do it? So very often in the session, they're sitting there in this place of expanded wisdom and understanding and speaking to, this is me. This is what I know I need to do. And then they go out into the work, into the world, and then they come back next session. And it's like, well, how were you? Were you living those things which you spoke so eloquently of, that you know is going to keep you on this path? Well, no, actually, I didn't.
And that is what I'm talking about.
And then we explore that again. So we renew very often over a long relationship. It's a return to, there's a continual recycling, a return to, a cycling into what has been covered previously. People often feel like they take 2 steps forward, 3 steps back, 3 steps forward, 2 steps back, 4 steps forward, 1 step back. And that can be very, very frustrating. They get so frustrated with themselves because they don't like the cyclical nature of the learning journey. They don't recognize it. And this is what we talk about in the course, that this is an inherent dynamic. You cannot escape it. So the question is then, how do we work with that? Can we trust it? Can we continually return to states of being desired, knowing that every time we do, we go a little further up the beach? And yes, we may come back and it might be a bit painful because it felt so good to be that which I desire to be. And it really hurts to come back, but we return to. So the role of the coach becomes one of enabling that return to, the allowance, the acceptance, the letting go of self-judgment, self-loathing, whatever may come with that, so that it can return to that space of embodied expansive being, see again, and act and move from again. So the coach's role is, how do we support that cyclical journey where people struggle and resist what is naturally going to happen? That's a mouthful.
Thank you. I think that's my journey. I think more I can help others do it, enable that in others. I think I need to reach that myself. And that's really why I'm seeking this program as well. Thank you.
Okay.
I'll share a personal story. in response as well, as we bring today's session to a close, is that committing to that journey of personal transformation is all the doingness on the journey. And life has such a beautiful way to present opportunities each time that you commit. And in that commitment on that journey, and that's my experience in this present moment, even as I speak to you, is that, okay, you're committed to this journey. Let's see how you engage with this. And staying committed to that journey is what builds sustainability. But life has its beautiful way of ushering lessons that support the journey of becoming. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.
So with that, we're on time. We're 2 minutes still left. So thank you all for being here.
Yes, very much for coming.
And great thanks to Nidhi and Priyanka, who are both part of our Back to Source coaching team, and who are all deep coaches. And it's a space that we experience ourselves, that we live into each day, and we bring to you through this program. So I really hope that you feel like taking that leap of faith and joining us in January. And if not, when you're ready, you will. And that door will always be open for that. So thank you, and see you all soon as our paths keep crossing. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful night.
And thank you so much, Leon.
Yeah, you're very welcome. Absolutely. I love this work. I could talk about it all night, but I won't. Good night, folks.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.